Assalamu alaikum, watching Views and News, and I'm Faisal Rahman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about the Kulbashan Jadhav case that has been taken to the International Court of Justice in Hague, Netherlands, and the first hearing was yesterday, where the Pakistani lawyer, Mr. Khawar Qureshi, presented the case. And now, since it's a very technical case, now you talk about the consular access, or you talk about the legitimacy of that individual, that whether he was, because the Indians claim that he was kidnapped. But the Pakistani intelligence agencies say that this man was found inside the Pakistani boundary, and he has confessed that he was assigned certain tasks to destabilize Karachi, and in particular Balochistan. This was his domain. He was a serving commander of the Indian Navy, and the Indians claim that he was a retired person. But anyway, that person was found with 2 passports also. Why to have Mubarak Hussain Patel when his name was Kulbashan Jadhav? It's just like my name is Faisal Rahman, but I'm traveling on a passport with some other name. So that was something pretty dubious and pretty interesting to look at. Since we'll be talking about this case in detail, where do we stand at the moment as far as the decision is concerned? What sort of strengths do we have in this case? What sort of weaknesses do we have in this case? According to certain lawyers, somebody also said, I'll quote Baba Rawan here, that if 2 parties do not agree, they can't even go to Hague. I'm not sure. This is what we'll discuss. That what is the procedure to go to that court, and what is the exact function of that court? We talk about humanitarian crisis in Kashmir. That is where they should step in. Nothing has been done so far. Nobody is ready to sort of take up this case and do the proceedings on almost daily basis. People are being killed. You talk about, if you remember, a few years ago, there was this naval plane which was shot down by the Indians, in which around 40-45 people were killed, including officers and cadets, and also the crew member. That case was also taken to this International Court of Justice. Nothing has happened so far on that front. What makes this case so important that it's there straight away, and the hearing is there, and the Indians, I mean, they're using their lobbies, I mean, they're using their influence, and this is what exactly is happening at the moment. Let me introduce you to our panelist. We have in our studio Brigadier retired Tipu Sultan, defense analyst. Needs no introduction, sir. Thank you very much. We have with us Dr. Aqab Malik Saab, sir. Thank you very much. And we also have with us Barrister Shahzad Akbar Saab, a legal expert, sir. Thank you very much. Barrister, if you allow me, let me start from that corner.
Please do.
So that we can get some legal approach about the case. Barrister, first of all, is it true that if 2 parties, party A and party B, if they do not agree, let's suppose you're one party and I'm the other party, and you want to take me to Hague, and if I do not agree, can you still take me to the court, sir?
Yes. So the situation of Hague, or the International Court of Justice, it's working under a convention which almost all states are party to. It's like a treaty where you go and sign the treaty, and as it happens with international treaties, people can sign with reservation. So you can say that you can bring such kind of claims to International Court of Justice, but you cannot bring any other claim. So you can have reservations.
Okay.
A lot of nations have their own reservation which they put on when they are signing the treaty. Individuals cannot be taken to International Criminal Court of Justice. It's only for the states. It resolves disputes between states. Now, in this particular case, both countries are signatory to the convention, but the particular aspect of this case are excluded from their jurisdiction. And one technical point is that this hearing is not on the issue if the ICJ has jurisdiction or not, as you would if you, because it was live streamed, the arguments of both sides. And Pakistani lawyers and Pakistani team also argued on this issue, saying that because this is not the forum, because they have invoked extraordinary intervention by the International Court of Justice, saying they should stop the execution. It has nothing to do with anything else. So it's in that context that this hearing was heard. It's not to the context if this case can be taken up in ICJ or not, because
so primarily it's about the verdict. Am I right?
It's about the execution. It's not about the word. It's about the execution, because they are saying that there is no other remedy available, and Pakistan, after denying various rights under the different treaties, just like the treaty where they have right to access their prisoners and all that. So they are alleging all those violations and saying this person is going to be executed, and we will not have any other remedy to stop it and its life of a person. So they're
Alright.
coming from that angle, which is actually not a norm. It's actually an exceptional circumstance. It's an exception, and this is actually an exceptional hearing because, as you said, the cases are filed at ICJ and it takes a long time to actually convene.
Exactly.
And Pakistan
Decades, maybe more than that.
a lot of time. I mean, if you look at the human rights violations or violations of one state's rights or others, it takes ages. But this is on a specific. It's just like, to give an idea, like in local domestic law, when there's a dispute and you have a issue which you need resolution forthwith, like immediately you have to resolve within 24 hours, otherwise you will lose the hope. I think India is they have tried to paint that picture, that if there is no appeal available, nothing, if this case is not decided tomorrow, Kulbashan Jadhav is going to be hanged.
So,
which is
and we
the
said
other way around.
there is no urgency.
And we said there is no urgency.
Yeah.
Because their appellate forums also left, so there was no urgency to have this hearing.
One more point. I mean, it also states, I mean, when it comes to, it says, I'm just going to read something out. It says, however, careful pursuit of the available record of the Indian application to the ICJ reveals that the two countries signed an agreement on consular access, agreement dated 21st May 2008, which not only modifies the obligations that the two countries have towards each other in respect of allowing consular access, but also nullifies the applicability of VCCR to the extent of such cases. Now, so we are a signatory, right? We signed this in May 2008. Yeah. Regarding consular access. So in this particular case, how do you view this?
See, the consular access is completely different. Consular access, first of all, this is again Pakistan's case as well, that consular access is given under, because you see Pakistan is a dual state where you have the international law which is implemented in Pakistan through the local law. So whatever treaties we have internationally, they only come into play once Pakistan domestically implements in form of legislation. So this is how international law works in Pakistan. So consular access, you can have consular access, but in this particular case, Pakistan case is that it comes under the reservation, because in cases and issues of national security, and it's not applicable to the foreign spies. So it's the exclusion of the matter rather than the general rule under which we all are. So the case actually works on similar. So for example, when hundreds, at any given time, I think we have over 1,000 fishermen or other people in our prisons which are given consular access. But this is an exceptional case of an Indian spy who was conspiring against the state of Pakistan.
It was confessed.
And he confessed as well. And this court cannot go to the merits of the case, but Pakistani state put the merits before the case for the context, not to decide if what we are saying is right or wrong, but to decide, to give them the context that this is not a case of consular access. This is a case of a foreign spy infiltrating in one country and supporting,
trying to destabilize it, who is killing people, basically.
And this is actually also in the reservation that Pakistan has put to the ICJ as well, that issues of...
So Bester Sahab, you believe that our case is strong?
I believe our case is strong, and I believe that there are no those exceptional circumstances which India has tried to portray to have the convening of this session to start with, because I think they misled the whole scenario.
You know, when you hear a statement coming from none other than Sushma Swaraj, and she says that he is the son of a soil,
I think that is the owning up.
How to protect him.
Because actually, if you look at this in context, there are thousands of Indians in Pakistani prisons. They're not even given legal aid by Indian High Commission, and one spy of Indian intelligence is caught and saying that he's son of soil. I think they're actually jeopardizing their own case. This is admission that he is what Pakistani alleges and what Pakistani trial process has proven to be. So in that scenario, I think this case, it has very less of legality, but more of that political aspect for the audience in India trying to say,
at least their government is doing something.
That their government is going out of their way, going to International Court of Justice.
So basically to sort of, stabilize the mindset of their own people. Now, Kapsa, a man with two passports, what is that supposed to mean?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious, really.
And interestingly, two passports but two different names, two different identities.
But that's where the problem lies. I have two passports, but they've got the same name.
Yeah, that's why I clarified.
But they've got the same name. But obviously there's some subterfuge happening here. He was trying to hide himself one way or another. And what is the reason behind that? Now, they're indicating that he was a businessman in Iran, he was kidnapped, etc. And why would he have a Pakistani passport with a different name on, with a Muslim name on? He's trying to hide something. Whether it was criminal or not is another issue. Given that he is a serving military officer, and he's not, we read a lot about, I've heard a lot about and read about and seen many movies and other things. And movies don't really define the legality of the issue, but they give you a sense of understanding because a lot of these are based on reality. Of a person who's not in uniform, caught in a foreign country, aiding and abetting terrorists within that country or causing destabilization within that country, and with passports as an evidence, would indicate that his tensions were negative towards the country. Yeah? And that's what we're surmising here. And the fact that he's admitted his involvement in this, it indicates, well, now this, why is India going ahead with this then? Why is India taking this to the International Court of Justice? It's primarily because, as we explained before, that they feel humiliated and caught out. Now, you just mentioned the fishermen. There are many, many hundreds, maybe thousands of fishermen caught, and why don't they go after them? What is the difference between this man, who's apparently a retired officer as far as the Indians are concerned, and a businessman that we apparently kidnapped? Why go after that? What is a bigger deal here? And why go to such lengths to the ICJ? So this defines exactly, as you said, and I agree with you, you've said this very articulately, and I was listening to this very intently. I'm not a legal expert. My area is strategy, and I look at the wider picture as far as international relations are concerned and how countries engage or disengage, and this is the very area that I talk about and think about a lot on the intelligence aspects and what people do. No doubt, when you have intelligence agents in a different country, they're going to try to mix in with the local population, try to look the same, behave the same. They're taught how to do that. They're trained how to do that. They go in as beggars. They go in as traders. They go in as merchants. This has been happening for hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of years. And that's how spies are sent out. Let's take it back to 1200s when Genghis Khan was invading different areas. He was sent out 100 miles ahead, hundreds of miles ahead, to future cities that he wants to invade, to destabilize populations, turn the people against the leadership, have discord, etc., in the guise of local merchants and people from that area, for the intention of causing panic, so they would give up before Genghis Khan came in and find discord, so they would win in the battle without even having a battle. Mm-hmm. You know? This is a similar issue, taking advantage of the unfortunate circumstances Pakistan is in, hedging bets against it, but actively involving in destabilizing this country for many other reasons, for their own interests, distracting from Kashmir, for example, because there's been a heightened interest in what's happening in Kashmir, the atrocities that are being committed, and then turning the media attention away from it. This is happening everywhere in the world. Media attention is taken away by politicians from their own misdeeds, such as what's happening in the United States, for example, and distracting with other issues. You know? So they're distracted, and then the media cycle works so that it changes. Then changes. People have short memory. They're very fickle. They have short memories, and this moves on. And what they're trying to do is take it away from that and distract with another issue, and actually heighten the tension between the countries, which actually is detrimental to this country as well. And also creates a further negative image on us, as if we're not abiding by international law and we're committing a violence and an irregularity on a person who the Indians think is or say is innocent in this matter, and we don't think so. We caught him red-handed.
So, a man who has confessed, now they said that because he was forced to say whatever he has said. But why would he say that he was from Navy? He could have said he was from Army. Whatever he has said makes a lot of sense. And look at the body language. How do you see this, sir? And especially the timing when this man was caught or his identity was disclosed. That was the time when Mr. Rouhani, the president of Iran, was visiting Pakistan. Sir?
I think, Faisal, we have a lot of information on Kulbashan Jadhav, what he was doing, on what documents he was traveling, what was his mission, what is the stated policy of the Indian state against Pakistan by fanning terrorism over here. I think what we should discuss is the implication of the hearing at The Hague. The implication is whether or not they are stopping the execution of Kulbashan Jadhav, or they want to make it null and void and stop Pakistan what action it wants to take against these spies within ourselves. The implication is that if indeed his execution is stayed, then what were the factors governing again to promulgation of this case in the appellate court? What will be the implication on India-Pakistan relations? For example, if we let Kulbashan Jadhav go, would they stop their terrorist activities in our country? Policy of appeasement has paid us or not? And the second thing is that this is unprecedented. I don't remember an occasion where International Court of Justice has heard Francis Gary Power was shot down over Russia, flying from Bada Bear U2 over there, and his altimeter was tampered and shot down. There are so many other spies. The Israelis have been spying countries relentlessly. The Britishers have been doing in the Middle
Islamabad is flooded
Which spy case has been tried at the International Court of Justice? I don't remember that. And the alacrity with which they have entertained the case and they have opened it for hearing in such a short time raises questions. And then another question is,
now that is actually the real question.
The other question is whether or not the government of Pakistan will deal with the case in the International Court of Justice like we did with Jamaat Ali Shah on Indus Basin Water Treaty, of not presenting the credentials and the reasons that you had, ample reasons of the treaty that were violated. Over here is Kulbashan Jadhav, who was executing the mission enunciated by Ajit Doval and Modi himself, and then the International Court of Justice sent an all panel listening to him. Tomorrow they are going to say that the execution is stayed because so reasons. Where Pakistan goes after that? What will be the implication of our relations with India? What I think is that there are other solutions to it. The other solutions are that the Indians are not stopping killing innocent Pakistanis here by fanning terrorism over here, by funding them.
Absolutely.
Why would they stop? They are having their way in the international forum. They are having their way in the United Nations General Assembly and Security Council. They are having their way in
even in Hague.
Even in Hague, they are having their way in United States. They are having their way in European Union. They are having their way elsewhere in the Far East, etc. How and will they stop? And what should Pakistan do? It is quid pro quo. We should stop the policy of appeasement, help Kashmiris by providing the weapons and in fighting the war against the independence war. We should do the same thing to Indians, what they have been doing in Pakistan. I think there have to be some blasts in India.
No, that's a pretty heavy statement.
I'm telling you.
Tit for tat. I mean,
I'm asking a question. I'm asking a question to this forum, to all the intelligentsia. We have tried our diplomatic effort. We have taken the dossiers to the United Nations. The Indians have announced that they will destabilize Pakistan. The Indians have announced that their state policy of doing that, and we are requesting that they're not doing it. And the International Court of Justice.
One more point before I
really respect Brigadier Saab. Lekin the problem is that on an international forum, we have actually by fully participating in the hearing have established that we are a civilized nation. This is how we act on international forum. We have nothing to hide. This person was a spy in Pakistan, trying to destabilize Pakistan's security and national security and create havoc in the country and being instrumental to that, and therefore we have given him a trial, and it was a very speedy trial in a sense that he was given a trial straight away. I mean, people arrest spy and then throw them in the gallows and there are no trials. Absolutely. This was an example. He was given trial, and one factor which was highlighted there as well, but trying to hidden by Indians, is that he actually has multiple appellate forums within the legal system to appeal against his death sentence. So why they're running to International Court of Justice is right, that they actually want to put up this show and trying to say, oh, Pakistan is but I think Pakistan has shown that Pakistan is actually a civilized state, and it's given this person a trial, and we are going to, and there is no way that International Court of Justice can tell Pakistan anything. It actually, international law works on reciprocal basis. It works on admitting to certain things, admitting to the jurisdiction. And Pakistan participating to this first hearing, initial hearing, it's not admitting or submitting to the jurisdiction, because Pakistan is challenging the jurisdiction of ICJ listening to this matter. So therefore, I think what Pakistan state has done is right. I mean, I can also differ in a sense that what kind of quality of work was done from our team or legal team in this Western Treaty cases and other cases, that hasn't been that great. And I think therefore we rightly feel that if the international lobby and everything act against us, but I think we should...
It matters, Barrister Saab, it
No,
does
it does
matter.
It does matter.
We
At
have
the end of the day, how it affects Pakistan is important.
But one thing that we have to be very clear as a nation, that we are actually fighting against the terrorism. We are fighting against any terrorism from within and outside, and we can no way even think of instigating the same in any other country. This should be our national policy. This should be part of our
That
foreign
makes a lot of
policy.
sense.
I mean, we might be suffering at the moment and it's extremely painful, but on state level, this can never be our policy.
Now, Kapsa, there were various views, when this man was caught. That this story shouldn't have been the headlines, when the visit of Mr. Rouhani was taking place. And especially when you say this man was working in Iran or doing a business or whatever he was up to, but he had some contacts in Iran and then he was coming to Pakistan. He's been visiting this area quite often. 2 passports, forget about that. Do you think it was important to tell the world that we have caught Commander Kulbashan Jadhav rather than just holding him, getting the stuff out of him and not telling the world?
But I think we did hold him for a while and take things out of him, understand.
You think
and
he was caught much earlier?
Well, I can't talk about that because I don't have access to that intelligence information.
Okay.
And the fact is, a lot of this is state secret. And it's not going to come out and ever come out. A lot of it won't, because it's detrimental to our national security. So, and that's our right. So nobody can compel us to do that, given the circumstances.
All right.
So what I want to say is that whether it came out or not, and how it came out, we've got a very free press, and it proliferates very quickly. And there are lots of leaks here or there. And so at certain times we have to manage information in a way that we best can.
Do you think we managed it well?
I don't know. I think also that we were on a certain back foot as well at that point in time. We needed a win. And this was a very substantial win last year when we caught him. And when it came into the news cycle, and we worked on it a lot. And I was here a few times regarding this issue when we talked about this, whether with you or others. And I find that what happened at that moment in time was that we felt quite good that we'd given a black eye to the Indians. And this is what it is. We're at a Cold War. Let's not kid ourselves here. This is what it is. Yeah?
Indeed.
And at the end of the day, what's happening here is that we're taking one up against them and they're trying to reverse that with the international appeal. And I think, in all honesty, we have to recognize that we failed in many forums because of our media outlets, or we failed in our information dissemination over the last few decades, especially lately, and that's let us down. And that's where we need to put more effort on. And this is one of those aspects to do so. And we are doing the right thing by engaging in the international community, yet, and we're doing it in the right way, but we reject their jurisdiction in this matter. I think it was 1999 when the Americans were going to execute a German, and the appeal was made in the ICJ, and the Americans completely ignored it.
Yeah.
By the way,
Absolutely.
Completely ignored it. Yeah. So we're talking of duplicitous standards here.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So nobody can
this is
force
what it
this
is.
on us. And many of these things, they have, these bodies are institutions that help countries regulate relations with each other, in a very archaic environment. It's small boats in large choppy seas, and we try to do what we can. But you're not going to make us undermine our national security. It doesn't matter what's going to happen. And at the end of the day, I think we need to stick to that. And jurisdiction issues are involved here, we might think, and they may think, and we may argue upon these, but there are certain facts at the case. Yeah? And India is trying to put this in the international dimension to flood the opinion away from us. And they were trying this in many other forums. And this is just another tit for tat that they're doing. The fact of the matter is, they engage in all aspects, and this is where we must engage in peaceful engagement, in peaceful argument, in many different forums, in information dissemination, because this is about changing the hearts and minds of the global opinion about Pakistan. And we're rising now. We're rising, and it's well known we're rising, especially after the summit over the weekend.
Perceptions which prevail
And
are
that's
so
it.
wrong in the Western world.
But that's only because we partially failed in our responsibility to our own country and making and
I totally
changing
agree
those
with you on that.
perceptions.
Yeah.
Isn't
But
that
listen,
true?
there was a story, if you remember, a few weeks ago, that a retired lieutenant colonel who applied for a job, and then he got a job. He was working for a farm company, if you remember the last job he had. And obviously, when you retire as a colonel, obviously you have got sufficient experience in serving, the military at various levels. He did serve in the intelligence. Then because I read his CV, and it stated a lot. He's been working there. He's been posted in Quetta. He's been doing this and that. That man was selected for a certain job in Nepal. Now, we all know that Nepal is like another province of India, the kind of influence they have. I mean, people say that, the Indian SHO can practically go, grab one guy and can bring him to India. This is the kind of hold they have. And Nepalese, they don't have, now they're, inclining towards China, but otherwise they were totally dependent on the Indians. Now, what I'm saying is, this man was practically kidnapped. And now, do you think it's a tit for tat kind of an approach by the
When
Indians?
I said that there has to be a tit for tat, everybody laughed over here. I have absolutely no doubt that colonel was kidnapped. It was a well-planned Indian sting operation. Their intelligence, they lured him in and they picked him up. It's as simple as that to create leverage. International relationship works on leverage, whether it is sinister or not, whether it is honest or not, whether it depends on the resources of the country. But you have got to have some leverage on other country to make them agree on what you are saying. Look at what the Americans did to the International War Crimes Tribunal. Their armed forces are immune to that. And at the end of the Second World War, they had Nuremberg trials, and the American forces are known to have bombed the television stations, Al Jazeera, the prisons, the hospitals, marriage parties. They can do anything on this earth, and nobody is there to ask them.
Madrasas,
Yeah,
hospitals.
madrasas. They've killed so many. No nation has ever killed more people, more human beings compared to the Americans. And they have been doing that with impunity.
Then they talk about weapons of mass
And
destruction, the ones who've been using.
They create all sorts of bombs. And the point is that whether or not that colonel is, how much is he dear to Pakistan? He's a Pakistani. We are obviously concerned with it. But what I would say is that the strategic national interests are more important than human beings. That is why you keep on sacrificing people in the armed forces. You keep on sacrificing people in the civilian society across the turf of Pakistan, police, other institutions, etc. For what? For this country. Over here, we've caught somebody who was perpetuating a war, an asymmetric war on us, killing our people, admittedly so, and we have got an appeasing policy on that. See, the point is that Pakistan has to decide whether or not the policy that it was doing is beneficial to us or not. Right, we are a civilized nation. You can say somebody wages war on you, says you are a civilized nation, you're not
retaliate,
you're not going to do anything about it. It does not work like that. They can tell you stories of saving an antelope from a stream, etc. As a good human being. On the other hand, they would be killing thousands upon thousands of people. So it doesn't work like that. I think with India, you got to realize that here is a country who is bent upon destroying the fibers and the society of Pakistan, fanning terrorism successfully over decades and not stopping it.
They've done it brilliantly.
And they have said so that Pakistan has been sucked into the Afghan war, and we'll see that Pakistan economy does not work, it does not stabilize, CPAC does not work, we are going to isolate them, and we are going to have an offensive defense, and we are going to aid and abet terrorists, as my friend Doctor over here has said. So what are the options that we have in order to make them? You know what? When Mao called his generals and told them that the Indians are not listening to me on Aksai Chin, and I want you to do something so that they should start listening. 1962. So the Chinese army attacked across, captured quite a few of territory, and then the Indians said, okay, we'll listen to you. And Mao said, okay, you come back now. So you got to make your adversary realize
Kashmir and bring them on the negotiation table.
You realize You realize that, in 2003 we entered into agreement in Musharraf's time. And we withdrew all the support from Kashmiris. And they started off in Balochistan. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that.
They've already engaged in Balochistan, but I mean that their efforts, I mean, they multiplied there.
They were always engaged since 1947 through Afghanistan. Whether there was a king's government over there, whether they were...
So the simple one-liner is that, CPEC, I mean, CPEC
there was
is
only
a project which is going to benefit India also. I mean, if you look at it in the largest perspective, but just because it is going to benefit Pakistan more.
I will take you,
simple as that.
As simple as that. I will take you to just one occasion, that small slot in Afghan history where the Taliban had captured power. And the Indians were so worried. That was the only time in Afghanistan and Indians had some issues. And Pakistan had a perfect relationship. Absolutely. So this is what worries them. That is what the proxy war is all about. I mean, destabilized Afghanistan suits India because it affects Pakistan. Now, so one more point. I mean, there was the story in the Dawn newspaper written by Taimur Malik and Muhammad Bilal. It said that Pakistan could succeed, India may suffer knockout. I don't want to read the whole story. I'm sure you've gone through. On what grounds?
I've read the article. It's two young lawyers who've written this article. Yeah. I think they're right, and we've had many experts writing about the hearing and the outcome of the hearing before that, and they have all been putting the arguments which actually go into Pakistan's favor, as I said, like the jurisdiction issue. And what actually India has tried to do in this particular case is they're trying to mingle human sympathy into the legal issue of international law. Humanitarian issue. So it's not even a humanitarian, it's basically one human. So basically if you look at the world, generally the world is anti-death penalty. And where the International Court of Justice is and that whole Western world, Europe, is against death penalty. So this is how tactically you go and you create that, that kind of a hoax. Yeah. They are going to execute a person. They are going to execute a person. Yeah. So you start shouting and they say, okay, come inside and we'll listen to you. This is exactly what has happened in this case. It's not about, if you look at the legal standing of this case, it has no standing from Indian side. I was actually surprised when I read for the first time the news, India is taking Pakistan to ICJ. I said, well, yes, politicians in all countries say these things in their election campaigns, but they don't go on committing such things. Yeah. It's like in domestic legal setup. If that's called point scoring. Some poor person goes to a lawyer who's looking for work and he says, I want to sue my opponent, I want to drag him to court, and the lawyer says, no problem, I'll take him to the court. He will lose the case, he will lose all his money, but that lawyer will get some money out of it. It's so bizarre. This whole episode is so bizarre. It shows that picture to me. And I think on legal front, on legal side, on this particular issue, I'm sure that ICJ panel would be able to see through that, because the important factual point in this case is that they will be able to see that the hoax that was created, that the emergency, that this is something which requires international court intervention does not exist, because there are alternate remedies available for not giving this person death penalty. But barristers have another point. I mean, when you look at this case, it's about one single person, one individual. Okay, every life is important and precious. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But what I'm saying is that it seems as if it's not the urgency on the Indian side. Hague is also playing a very interesting, role. This is the important aspect, what I said earlier. Death penalty is an issue of concern. And it really matters. Look at the panel of the ICJ, look at the people who are sitting, look at the city where they're sitting in. If you say that you're going to execute a person, people show their sympathy, no matter what a brilliant legal mind they are or whatever profession they've come from. It's the basic human nature. So India has played on that human nature. I'm also not in favor of death penalty. But if you bring an issue before me, I have to apply my legal, because I have to see the domain of my work, that where actually the law under which I work, so that comes in. And they raised that aspect and they played with that to bring this panel together. And this is what has really worked in their favor. So you believe they're playing the cards very wisely? Well, diplomatically, internationally, you have to admit Indians are much smarter. They play their game, in much detail. They use the word, I want to borrow from Brigadier Saab, appeasement. They use appeasement in a very different way. They use it at all forums. They go they go as a victim to various forums internationally, and this is what they have done. And I think in this particular time,
बगल में छुरी मुंह में राम
yes,
राम.
something to the line. But I think one particular aspect which that is coming out of this discussion as well, that should have been highlighted a bit more from Pakistani side, is that why this one particular case? We have examples of thousands of Indian citizens who get arrested. Their cases are processed. Sometimes they get punishment from the court. They spend their time in prisons. They go back. We have to establish, and we should have shown from factual analysis that how many Indian people from Indian High Commission visit all these poor Indians who are rotting in Pakistani jails, who through various Pakistani NGOs get free legal aid and then they are sent back to India.
Yeah, Bernie
Not even a single visit
thing was there for 35 years.
Not even a single visit by Indian High Commission to all these Indian citizens. Are they not son of the soils? Why this one particular person is son of the soil? Because this again factual point was much more important to dispel that kind of hoax that they created of this emergency that Pakistan is going to execute this person tomorrow. And Pakistan said that we're not going to, because there are appellate forums as well.
It's not an urgency for it. But sir, looking at this aspect, I mean, which I earlier also asked you, that wouldn't it have been better if this man was caught and we should have revealed it later?
I think before Dr. Saab says something,
technically speaking,
I think what he was saying earlier as well, that is, this is kind of a Cold War situation going on, and this seemed like an occasion that we have been saying for so long.
Because,
that
we have provided the dossiers and everything. Now, this is another proof attached with that dossier. Look, this is a man, he has confessed. Now, when you confess, I mean, the Indians say that, he was forced to say whatever he has said. But honestly speaking, I mean, if they have a little bit of brains, I mean, you look at the confessional statements, he was very calm. I mean, he was very calm, very cool, and he was just, you can tell that he's telling the truth.
I think what's happening here is that when you say that he was forced, it's like relating a different situation with Pakistan and this chap. For example, terrorist groups capture somebody and get a forced confession out of him to admit that for example, is an American soldier or a journalist or something, and some terrorists capture him, and they're going to cut his head off and make him announce a confession. That's a forced confession. I think what the Indians might be trying to do here is to say that Pakistan's doing exactly the same thing and put us in a bad light in that respect. But we know that the situation is very different. He was treated with a certain degree of respect, maybe that he doesn't even deserve, given that he's engaged in activities. But we give it, because he was a soldier of the Indians, we give him that respect. And then we allow him to engage and talk to us about this. And his confession has been live, televised. And he's not got any, you can see there's lack of duress there. You can see in an alternate case when there's a terrorist who's trying to get a forced confession out of another person, that they've been under arrest, or they've been put in a prison and starved, for example, and has psychological and physical torture on them. And you can see that in their face, as you say, in their chehra. And you see his attitude and how they come about, and their demeanour is very different. This chap was completely different, very much open, realised his situation, and he was on camera and accepted his fault. And we caught them. I think that, and you're right, I think that the occasion, the time that we've been continually saying again and again and again, that Indian experience, they've admitted it, Doval admitted it, that he wants to use terrorism, and this was the prime example of it. I think it was a good case that we used it.
He calls it offensive defense.
And that we used it. If, on the other hand, that we'd kept it behind and didn't, they would have said we've kidnapped somebody of their own, we're using it, and then we would have had to lag behind them, and then they would have taken the initiative. But we took the initiative in this and highlighted the situation in the world, that we'd caught somebody. And that what we're saying for so many years and time is in conjunction with what the hierarchy is saying in undermining Pakistan. And we wanted to change the narrative. And that's in our right, but also telling the truth about the situation in Pakistan. But there are wider picture. There's a wider picture at stake here. The rise of China, Pakistan developing, detrimental to India, it thinks. The Obor summit just lately indicated the British foreign minister was there, and the whole delegation of people came there because they realized this is an opportunity for business and engagement and interaction and international, interstate, interregional, continental, intercontinental engagement and connectivity, interconnectivity and interdependence in the future economically, which will reduce conflicts.
Obviously, when
Reduce conflict.
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So why would you undermine that, which is in the benefit of the global environment to a future global governance? This is what we're looking at in a period down the line when we can resolve these very minor issues of shoulder rubbing and turf wars and get on with each other as human beings. And I see that as the future of this. As human beings, let's be adults and resolve this issue, especially Kashmir. These are people who have rights, and they need to resolve this issue. And this is the same with many parts of the world. We need to start engaging with each other as human beings, as adults, and say, look, we've been through these wars. We don't want to go through millions of deaths. We don't want to go through millions of deaths to learn that we've done something wrong. Europe went through hundreds of years of constant war and war and war and war until the last century, when there were two devastating wars, which resulted in global wars, primarily because based on European interests around the world, because of colonialism, and millions upon millions upon millions of people died. And by the way, the Americans haven't. Let's get factual here. Let's have the higher moral ground. Americans haven't killed that many people compared to previous generations of different empires and this and that. They have not. Yeah?
But in the recent history,
you'll be surprised.
No. I do, because this is my business. Is what I do. Yeah, I understand this. Let's not get it. They have killed a lot, and there are millions, but not in the same extent that's happened previously. And if you look at the statistics and the trends right now, war is dying down. It may look like the media is hyping this everywhere. The one person dies, and everybody jumps on it, and you think that everybody's dying everywhere. But war is actually depreciating. It's going down. Conflict is reducing. This is one of the things that we need to engage the world with, that we are willing to engage the world and we become the center of this. And this is what OBO and CPEC and all these things are a win-win for everybody. And that's what the Indians need to understand. This is not a slap in their face. This is an opportunity for them. So let's engage on this. Yeah? And we can figure something out. But don't do things where you instigate problems in our country.
No, that is a good question. Now, sir, since everything, whenever you talk about India and Pakistan, the use of the Afghan soil against Pakistan, or not attending this OBOR summit or the forum in Beijing, though the private sector did go, by the way, but official representation wasn't there by the Indians. You talk about issues in Gilgit-Baltistan, Balochistan, Karachi. Now let's talk about Kashmir for a moment, sir. Whatever is happening at the moment in Kashmir, we all know. There is an absolute check on the social media, on the regular media, on the Indian media, on the print media. Nothing is coming out from Kashmir as such, I mean, the way it used to. Now, primarily, is Kashmir issue really worrying the Indians? And they're panicking at the moment, is it? And because of that, I mean, whatever they're doing at the moment, left, right and center, is primarily because their own parliamentarians, they have accepted that, well, they have a control over the piece of land, but not on the minds of the people, A. And the kind of money they're spending, the kind of troops, I mean, obviously when you're talking about 750,000 law enforcement agents placed in Kashmir, I mean, that means money, that means cost.
If the Indians were not worried, why would they keep so much of armed forces over there and have the control, commit those atrocities across the turf of Kashmir? I think they're worried about Kashmir, but what they have successfully done is to shield their situation from the outside world. The world looks the other way. They have got double standards, and they want to put the freedom movement of Kashmiris into a terrorism basket. They've been doing that for a long time, and we have failed to convince the world reasonably well. I would raise a couple of questions over here. We have a law expert, and with your permission, I would ask him that what will be the implication of the decision at The Hague if they stayed the execution and pass certain instructions to India and Pakistan on this issue? The fact is that there is a case being heard at The Hague, whether rightly or wrongly, and there's going to be a solution. And there's going to be an enunciation of a certain verdict by the International Court of Justice over there. And what will be the implication, the legal implications if that court stayed the execution of Kulbashan Jadhav? That is one. The other is, that
Is there any probability, sir, of that? What just
Well, it's a case. It can
mentioned?
go either way. That probability is there.
Is there?
Yeah.
Okay.
But as per opinion of many people, it's not really possible that will
Or maybe it's a
happen.
little too early to
It's a little
to
too
say.
early, but if that happens, I would really hope that it doesn't happen, that they gave a decision in India's favor, because then it will be a unfair, unjust order which Pakistani state.
But the way they have behaved, the way they have taken up the case, the way they have
the way
started the
they're being
proceeding.
heard.
I mean, the
I think
proceeding started like this.
You know, I mean, such like proceedings. I mean, there are issues in the world which actually, if you raise rightly with the right kind of strategy and media behind that, the issues can be taken up quite quickly.
All right.
And this is exactly what India has done. And I think their whole success was that they were able to have this session. But having said that, it doesn't really mean that the court
They won
is
the
going
case.
to. They won the case.
Yeah,
But if they win the case, and if, for example, the execution is stayed, of course it's
Okay,
international
what
law.
worse
It's
can
not-
happen for Pakistan? Execution is stayed. Okay,
That's
makes
what
sense.
it is.
And what if they say return the person back? Can they
No,
do that?
they can't do that.
They can't do that.
This is not even a
Because I'm a
question at all.
layman, you're a
No,
lawyer,
this is not.
you're a
The-
legal
the
expert.
stay of execution will be pretty much of advisory nation, and it will be basically saying that
Absolutely.
Pakistan should
Can't be
not be
enforced, really.
executing. It can't be really enforced by any international agency. And they will, I think, worst case scenario, they might be making an advisory or saying that his execution or manner should not be unsafe and unjust and something like that. I think saying that Pakistani state cannot execute him would be completely altering the existing international law and the norms.
So, last quick, not a comment, I mean, let it come from me, sir. I'll take 4 names. Harbyar Mari, Bramdat Bukti, Dr. Ala Nazar, Mehran Baloch. I've seen few of them in the Human Rights Commission in Geneva. And I could tell that they were actually with the Indians there. You could tell, you know. They were sitting in the kind of engagements they were having, and then the common
I'm
conferences.
sorry to cut you, not even you can tell. They actually are introduced in various countries by
Sir,
Indian
I'm
embassies.
totally
Well, obviously it's
running out of time,
the
but
country because they
4th
work
floor
against it.
of that hotel, I mean, at Hilton, right, which is very close to the Human Rights Convention, next to the Russian embassy and the Red Cross in Geneva. Well, when you go there, you see Gandhiji. There's a huge statue of Gandhiji there. But the point is that, you know, the whole 4th floor was booked by them. Every single Gora, the people who were the movers and the shakers, they wanted to attend their party. You know, I'm just giving you an example. That's how they lobby. That's how you lobby.
Yes.
You know, Pakistan need to...
We don't.
I mean, forget
That's the problem.
that this man was doing this or that.
Not only that,
The point is that, you know, this is 2017. This is the modern warfare. I mean,
This is how
you
you do
need
it.
to understand that holding a gun won't save you.
No.
Rather than holding a hand of a powerful person who has the influence makes more sense. But I think, you know, when I heard that Rahman Malik Saab really wanted these characters back in Pakistan and bring them into the main loop, you know, these guys are the enemies of Pakistan. Simple as that. Funded, aided by the raw agents to create problems for Pakistan in the international arena. Simple as that.
everybody knows that. You know,
Simple. But Brigadier Saab, I'm so sorry. I think we need to do another show on this. We'll soon do that this week. But sir, thank you very much.
Okay.
Akab Saab, was a pleasure. Brigadier Saab, thank you so much. And that's all we have for this hour. I'll see you inshallah tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Till then, you take good care of yourself. Khuda Hafiz.